wow, that must have been so good. I was like, great. I know, you're just gonna have to talk to me.
Hi, everybody.
Like, I'm prepared.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for coming out and supporting your local independent bookstore as well as these wonderful authors. Your attendance and book purchases let us have events like this, and we really love them. So thank you so much. It's great to see you all here. This evening we have the pleasure of hearing from Adrienne Maree Brown about her newest book, Love and Corrections, with Dr. Tressie McMillan Cottom. Adrienne Maree Brown grows ideas in public. She is a student of the works of Octavia E. Butler and Ursula K. Le Guin. Some of her books include Emergent Strategy, Pleasure Activism, We Will Not Cancel Us, and the speculative fiction trilogy, Grievers. She is the editor of the Emergent Strategy series. Dr. Tressie McMillan Cottom is a professor of the School of Information and Library Science at UNC Chapel Hill, a New York Times opinion columnist, and 2020 MacArthur Fellow. Thank you again. You can get copies of these books up front after the talk. Also, we'll continue the signing line then, so just go back out onto the floor after the talk concludes. But thank you all for being here.
Thank you. I can't believe that I get to talk to Tressie.
Of course, I want us to appreciate this is a wonderful crowd.
Oh yes, this is a beautiful crowd.
Yes,
Thanks for coming
seriously,
out, y'all.
this is amazing. Thank you very much. This is what, is it Thursday night or something like that? What's
Yeah,
today? Thursday, and y'all are out in 100-degree weather.
Wait, 7 p.m. Thursday, 100 degrees.
I ain't got no
book, and a book ain't got me.
So first of all, I think that whenever a book is birthed,
Yes.
we should just acknowledge it's not easy. And so congratulations on birthing this book.
Thank you so much.
I wanted to ask permission. You wanted to ask permission of the audience of how we want to do masking.
Yes, so part of what we've been doing is I'm asking the audiences to mask so that the conversants can unmask and have a conversation. Is everyone okay with that? So if there's anyone who's not, what we've been doing is just saying move to the back or move, rearrange yourself basically. But so far, this seems to have been working. I haven't heard any cases of people getting COVID because they came to these events, which is what I was going to.
Yep, that's what
We're
matters
good?
to me.
All
Yep.
right.
Thank you very much. And so we'll do this, and then back on if once we are
Cross my
speaking
lips.
afterwards.
Oh, you're so pretty.
Same.
Pretty good.
We ate. We should have done that.
Look, we have to take care of each other. Do you have your lipstick with you?
It's in my bag.
It's in your bag.
It looks good.
It looks good?
Mommy?
Yeah, before pictures. Okay, we're good.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, we had the FIM check.
Yes.
We're good.
It does matter. It really matters.
It really matters. Yeah, we
There's
can't be
so
out here
many
like that.
bad pictures of me on the internet.
But my lipstick is just, I'm like, so y'all were all sitting there
Right?
looking at that. Everyone was looking
And
at that.
it is
And they're like, we
horrific.
love you. And I was like, but do you?
But do you? Yeah,
But
it's like
really.
the friend who posts the unflattering picture of you on social.
I was like, oh, so you looked good, and that was enough for you.
I have actually, this might be too much. And
Have you ended friendships over this?
I was just about to say, given the topic. Okay, so we're going to get into the real stuff later, but seriously. So what ended up happening is, I don't know if it's that I am just super creative and can come up with scenarios.
Period.
And I read a lot into it, is what I'm
Did it
saying.
happen more than once?
Yes.
That's what, I'm like, if it happened more than once, then I'm like, that's what you think I look like.
That's what I thought.
Like, that's what you think I look like, but I don't look like that.
And so I ended up thinking, I think this is your eyes. This is...
I can't be friends with people who see me like that.
Okay.
I'm like, I need friends who look at me through flattering eyes.
Yes.
Because I'm like, I'm going to do unflattering things, but like, let me do them.
Yeah. So I have worried that was petty, but I just felt something in my spirit.
I at least distance myself, and I do pay attention. I'm like, you're not in charge of the pictures. Yeah? Because I have friends who I'm like, I always look good in this person's picture, or at least they know they know not to post the one where I'm like, my
That's
eyes
all
half
I'm
are
asking.
closed.
Yes.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
It's egregious too. I'm not like, it's just like opinion, like, oh, I was a little, you know, less gorgeous or whatever. I was like, it's not, I also am like, I'm not someone who grew up with a concept of myself as a pretty girl. So I'm like, I had to work hard to feel good in a picture. You're not gonna fucking take that from me.
Yeah.
Because you look good in the picture. It's like, there's just so many options.
Yeah. No, I've never thought of it that way, but that is probably why it matters to me.
Yes.
That's exactly
and I was
right.
like, now you look good.
Well, I thank you, as do you.
Thank you.
So I love the shoulder. That's one of my things. So
yes,
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So I love this book. Although I feel deeply convicted by it, and I just wanted to start there. Like, seriously, with what I just said even, is there a world for us where we can do the loving corrections, which, to be fair, you turn it on yourself?
Yes, all the time.
You turn it on to the things you love in this book. So it's not like you are looking at us from the outside.
At all. It actually doesn't work if you do it that way.
Why not?
It doesn't work if you can't have a sense of, I can be wrong and I can be corrected. Right? Because then what matters is actually that there's some equal playing field to it, right? That I'm like, I'm not better than you. I just have this part. You might have a different part. You might have something else to offer. I think about this often. One of my uncles is someone who, you know, if you saw him on the street, you'd be like, oh, I don't know if that guy's going to be on my side, right?
Gotcha.
And I know he's voted for Trump. He might have a MAGA hat on it. So, you know, like he's really going in that. That man can grow some peaches. Right? I want to grow some peaches, but I didn't get the grow peaches button, right? That's not set in my system. But I did get the white supremacy awareness button, right? And so I'm like, in the generational line, I was like, you're my family. You have something that I want. I have something that you want. And for whatever reason, blood ties us to each other. I know you. I don't have to know you, but I do know you. If I think I'm better than you to the degree that I can't learn anything, then it's never going to work, because you know how it feels when you're around someone who knows everything.
I do.
You know? And as a genius, you know that that's never the case. Official genius. But I mean, I did have a moment in my life where I was like, not everybody can correct me, and I will be honest about that.
Thank you.
Not everybody can correct me.
Ask you.
Not everybody can correct me, but with love, if I feel that people truly love me and the place that it's coming from is a really rooted place, then I can receive that. And relationship is the key. Relationship is the key. So this is why I think most of the efforts that people are making online to be like, how dare you? I'm like, bitch, I don't know you, right? I don't know you, and you don't know me. You didn't even know that, you haven't even read my post. Like, you literally haven't even scrolled to get to know just a little bit more context. You're just landing like you just landed on this planet and trying to come at me. I'm not gonna receive that correction well, right? But if there's people, even people I've never met before, who are just like, I've been following your work for a long time, I'm like, okay, now we have an entry, right? So you, at least I know that you're familiar with my lore. You're familiar with my values, and they're coming to me from that place. That's different. The same thing with people I love. When I have to, those are the hardest. The hardest moves to make are the ones where you love and there's the most on the line. Yeah. And those are also the most important. Yeah.
I'm in the middle of writing memoir, which I don't recommend to anyone.
But I'm can't wait to read it.
And I want to tell you, I think that this found me at a particular time. Because the thing about, we were talking about memory earlier, and apologies, y'all, we've already started. And so if you come into the middle of the conversation, we'll try to catch you up. So we talked about how strange memory is, and that we both need to lean into it, but shouldn't trust it as the truth, something you say in the book. It's a truth, it's not necessarily the truth.
Yes.
And a lot of what I am working through right now, which is why I think I felt so convicted, was whether or not if I am responsible for correcting someone lovingly, if they have not asked for it.
Yeah, people don't ask for these.
Okay.
I mean, this is, I find, people will ask for feedback occasionally, or like, can you show, how am I showing up, or how was something? But most of the time when it's truly I need to gather you up. It's, I'm seeing you, we are in relationship. At the lightest level, I'm like, there's spinach in your teeth. and I cannot let you go outside like that, right? To me, the other framework I've been holding it in is that people are locked in something. A loving correction is like, you're in a prison that you don't realize you're in. And if you were in a physical prison, I would come to you and I would be like, slip a shank or something. I was like, I'm going to jailbreak you. I'm going to try to organize. I'm going to try to get you out of there. We can't leave you in there. And I'm an abolitionist. I'm like, I know that that's not the place for transformation to happen. I think because now the way most of our prisons work, these mind prisons, they don't have to lock us into a structure. They've locked us into a structure, right? And white supremacy is a structure, patriarchy is a structure, ableism is a structure, and these are known. So I tried to really hold like, these are places that we actually are familiar with, but part of what makes it so hard to make the correction is because we're like, don't you know this? Don't we know this 20, 30 years in now? And it's like, no, this person's still stuck in there. And you got out. I got politicized not online. I got politicized by people.
I think that's so important.
Loving me,
It's not that. So we've already talked. With same age, same generation, and I am grateful for what I call like the Tumblr revolution, because that's where I think a lot of it started, right? And
Tumblr forever.
Tumblr. Yes. Okay, y'all were Tumblr people. I was a LiveJournal person.
Wow. Wait, but Friendster?
Friendster.
Okay.
Yeah.
I started my little blog on Friendster thinking I thought it was private journaling. And then I was like writing my whole love life.
Yeah.
And then someone told me like, when I realized, I was like, I'm so sorry. I wrote an apology. I was like, I'm so sorry that I didn't realize this was automatically sending to 250 people or whatever. And they were like, we're hooked. Like, what's going to happen with the Heartbreaker? Like, you can't stop now. And I was like, someday I'm going to go back to writing romance or something. But
was that your first audience?
I think that was my first audience. Yeah, my first actually, that's my first digital, like my first online audience. I had a column in high school called, what was it? It was an advice column.
Of course
and it was. And it was like an anonymous advice column, right? And then I wrote, when I was at Columbia, I wrote it for The Spectator. So I've had like places like that where I would write, but this is my first like going online and being like, okay, like people want to hear something from me. And then when the war in Iraq was getting started, then I started like this mass emailing. I was like, I got to stop this war. This feeling continues to come up. I was telling you how I feel about Palestine. I was like, I must with my body and my mind and the words
fix it.
I will stop this, And the humility of being a writer is like, I will not stop this. It will go on. I will write in a way that I hope shifts the culture. And that's all I can do, right? Yeah, that's the weapon I was given. It's a slow weapon.
It's a slow weapon. I struggle with that too. It is a very slow weapon, and I worry sometimes that it will be too slow and too late.
Yeah. But then we have our, what helps me so much is being like, oh, right now June Jordan is helping me, right?
Yeah.
She's getting me together. She's helping me be braver, because I go and I read, and I was like, she was being this brave when I was not born yet. She was being this brave about this issue. I can do this, right?
Yeah.
Or I go back to someone like Harriet Tubman, and she's like, my people are free. And I was like, okay, you wrote that down. You wanted us to know that you dreamt it. You wrote it down, and you wanted us to know that. And imagine how slow that writing both is and how relevant it still is. Like, we're not as fast as we think.
And some of that is that the digital culture has changed our relationship to time.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Nothing
moves like that.
Yeah, and we also discussed this. I have a dopamine problem.
Yes. You are not alone. Yes. No, I'm often finding myself, my dopamine thing keeps shifting. So I'm like, oh, I'm not doing that anymore. Look at me. And it's like, okay, but how much art did you just buy? I'm like, what? What? Like, what the hell? And then I also don't like it when I don't realize my phone is in my hand. That's my latest thing.
I don't like that.
I don't like that. So I'm like, How did you get here? Like I literally I'm in bed. Yeah. What are you doing? Like, you know, and I'm just like, oh, I'm not free.
I feel like it's controlling.
I'm not out of this. Yeah, it's got me. And I'm trying constantly to, like, I go on, most of my vacations are me being like,
me too.
Just put it down. Just put it down. That's your vacation. That's it. If you can put it down, amazing things will happen. But you just got to put it down.
Got to put it down.
You just got to.
So for people who end up getting radicalized though online, this is what I was saying that I'm very thankful for, because I think it created a generation particularly of radical feminists. And frankly, I'm not sure that my theory work would have been in the world in the way that it is without it. But at the same time, you talk about being radicalized in real life. Everyday life. I don't want to be one of those digital, everyday life. People life. What's the, is there a right mix, a right balance for this? Because one of the things that you talk about in the book is our cancel culture, which I just think of as a digital thing. Okay.
It doesn't happen in real life.
It's
not how people handle things in real life. But I do think there is a balance. I'm always trying to strike it, which is, I am in relationships that are not online. I have movement organizations and leaders that I trust I know them. I worked alongside them. I can vouch for them, or someone I can vouch for them. The network is wide. And so when I'm under pressure, I turn to those people. So with this election moment, I was like, I was off making my art, doing like my rituals and writing fiction, and then I turned around and I was like, okay, so fascism is like here, right? And what are y'all gonna do about it? I really was like, somebody got. I stepped back from being an not emotional organizer,
maybe
TM. Okay, but I stepped back from being an electoral organizer and from being a facilitator, from being like all up in everything. And so I stepped back and I'm like, y'all are handling that, right? And so then I look back, I'm like, this doesn't feel handled to me. It feels like, I was like, there's actual genocide and there's actual fascism, and we need a better solution than this. And when Biden was still the candidate, I broke out, right? And I was like, this is not right. This is not the timeline we want. I don't know. I'm so angry about so many things. And I'm used to being angry at my elected officials. I kind of feel like that's the job that they signed up for. I'm like, you're supposed to do what I want you to do and what everyone else who lives here wants you to do. It's a hard job, but do better. And I was like, Biden has to step down. We have to figure this out. So I started doing a series on my Instagram page. I
saw this,
right? So I was just like, let me have conversations. Every one of those conversations was with someone I have a real offline relationship with. And I know that their work happens primarily knocking on actual doors, sitting in actual conversation. I think that if you have those relationships, then that can translate into the online space, so that I can bring an Ashley Woodward Henderson onto my page, and I know her work, right? I can bring a Maurice Mo Mitchell into my life. I know his work. I know what he's trying to do with Working Families Party. I trust it, and that trust then can come into the online space, be witnessed there, reach a lot more people there than either of us could reach in our own lives. And I've gotten to see now this cycle where I'm like, what was able to happen with Occupy, with Black Lives Matter, with Me Too, with Palestine? These are movements that are happening at a vast level of impact that we weren't able to necessarily reach. Pardon, I had to burp. I burped into the microphone. Listen, the thing I'm saying is more important. So these movement cycles have been huge. We know that that's because of the digital organizing that allows us to see beyond where we can drive to or we can go to. So I think that's important. I think the saddest piece of it is that we have not figured out the etiquette or the protocols for how we move in that space. And we never, ever recovered from COINTELPRO. We never, ever really figured out what to do about infiltration. We never understood surveillance. So the first thing that happened for me with the cancel culture piece, I was like, even if you're mad about someone, if they're in movement and you're an abolitionist or you speak about wanting to end participation in these state systems, you can't throw our people out there in front of a surveillance culture that wants to disappear all of us.
I worry about that too.
All the time. So I was like, there's no rigor And I see this, for me, that's the piece. My auntie comes out, I'm like, come on, where's the rigor? Like, come on, we gotta protect each other, right? And then folks are protecting harm doers. And Miriam Kaba, for me, was the one who opened this door, right? Because she's like, we're all harm doers, and we have to let go of this idea that some of us are good, right? Once you let that go, then you understand that like all of us are one accusation away from cancellation.
Being this person,
right? And so then I'm like, how would I want to be treated if my worst day was suddenly the headline in the world? How would I want my loved one treated? Do I erase everything about them? Do they erase everything about me? In real life, we don't do that to each other. In real life, we're like, sometimes we set boundaries. Sometimes we're like, I can't talk to you, and I don't know when I'll be able to talk to you again, right? But I'm not saying now you go sit on an island by yourself with no friends and no food. That's actually not our human nature, right? Our human nature is to be like, you did something wrong, you have consequences.
All right, so let's talk about consequences.
Yes.
Because maybe I would feel, because I do think there's a certain amount of catharsis that people are looking for with cancel culture, right? Especially in a world where I think so many people feel like they don't feel empowered, right? Politicians don't listen to them. The market doesn't listen to them.
It's not just a feeling.
It's not just a feeling, that's right. But they're like, the one thing I can do, right, is
I can this random person.
That's right. I can do that.
Yes.
And I get the feeling of having done something. And so consequences matter. I think they matter to the group and matter to the person. Yeah. When we talk about cancel culture stuff, like what are we talking about here? What are the types of things we are doing, have been done? And what should be what is the right scale of consequence?
Beautiful. So to slow it down just a bit there, one of the first things I think happens is, one of the things I'm always trying to get people to rearrange in their minds is, if you think of people stuck inside these systems, then you want to get angry at the system, and then you want to help those people get out of that system, right? So that's one of the things that I first shifts I made in my head. So I'm like, I could rip that person a new one. It doesn't impact the system that they're upholding at all, right? They're just now, usually they get more defensive and they double down. They're like, oh, really? Now I'm really white, you know? And I'm like, damn, that didn't work, right? Or I keep seeing it play out where people are like, oh, so you just fucking love genocide? I'm like, that's not what that person was saying. No. That's not what they're espousing. But now they feel defensive. And I'm like, that's not useful, right? So one of the things I'm always looking for is what is useful and what helps us grow and what helps us actually impact the system. This is why I'm an organizing stand. Even though I'm not a door knocker myself, you know, I'm a cultural worker. I'm like, I make poems about y'all, right? I'm like, I'm gonna write your story. I'm gonna make sure people know about you. But organizing is so much more satisfying than commenting online, right? Actually going and making a difference in your community, actually getting a ceasefire resolution in Durham, that's much more useful than yelling at people online that you're never gonna meet. It might be bots, might be from a comment farm, might be a troll, might be someone who is literally paid by the government to create exactly this disruption. And which government? You don't even know. We're in that stage of reality is all a game.
No,
and so people are spending their life online in a space where you don't know who's real and who's not real. That's the, right? So then, to me, consequences are something that happen in offline space in real life, right? Even if someone's like, you removed my platform, right? I've seen that. And I'm like, that usually only lasts for a little while. People disappear for a bit, and then they slowly start creeping back in, and they're like, hi, still Drake. Not like us, but I'm like something else.
How long is Drake gonna be gone? We were debating this earlier.
Drake never left. Drake is just like, I'm posting sadder pictures now. I'm sad, I'm pensive, I'm lonely. I'm like, that's not a consequence. That's not, do you know what I'm saying? Like, if you actually are engaged in pedophilia or something that needs to, like, what do we actually need to do about that, right? So so some of the things that the cancellations happen for, I'm really fascinated by this because a lot of it is the tone that the story gets told in, right? There's a lot of stuff like that where it's like we were talking about Lizzo, right? When people are like, oh my God, she went to a strip club with her workers. I was like, I think I also went to a strip club with everyone I worked with multiple times. And I think when I was at the strip club, everyone was encouraging each other to do crazy things. But the way the story gets presented is in the tone of the most horrific true crime thing, right? So then you're like, what is the consequence? Like, if you cross the boundary and you took your employees into a space they shouldn't have been in, there's an adequate consequence for that, right? There's a reaction, there's a response, there's an apology, there's accountability, there's changing your policies so that future people who work for you don't have to have those boundaries. There's things you can do. Mm-hmm. None of them are served by people coming online and telling you how fat you are, how horrible you are, how evil you are. Especially for things that everyone else has done, which I find those to be, to me, the most interesting cancellation moments.
Now that you're saying it, me too.
Right?
Yeah, same.
Because I'm like, I watch something, and I see this in private conversations all the time where people be like, what did they do? Or, you know?
Yes.
And what happens is everything gets flattened out. Yeah, it's like,
insane. They're like,
it's not that. Yes. Right? And especially because the thing I find fascinating, especially when it's Black women. So, and this, I haven't said it, so we'll see. You let me know if I'm like, girl, you can't say that.
Let's go.
But what I find really interesting is that people will come at a Black woman for doing what anyone else is doing and with the tone of just like, fuck her.
Absolutely.
Where I'm like, but this white man did an actually evil, horrific thing. And it's just like, you could do 1 million of them and be indicted and still be running for president, right? Yes. Like the standard flattening is the part to me where I'm like, okay, now we know we're in a cult or we're in a reality that doesn't quite make sense. And when you start to recognize like, oh, this isn't making sense, but we're inside of it. So it's really hard to see. I tell people, if you have the privilege, leave the US. Just travel outside the US. You'll move, but go somewhere else and look back at us, right? Go to South Africa, go to Spain, right? Go to Brazil, go to places where people have a politic, where people have a politic that's different. Go to Ireland. Ooh.
Just
Ireland will get you together, right?
It will.
And in a loving or not loving, but in a way that's just like, that's not the only way that the world works. Y'all are actually having a really bad impact on everyone else. Like what y'all do, you know, it's like so helpful to be like, oh, we're the baddies. And
even if in this context we are the least baddie.
Exactly.
But when you leave this country, you become this nation.
They're like, oh, you're right.
And it is, as a Black woman especially, it is stunning.
It's
to walk out in the rest of the world, because here I'm never an American. No. But as soon as I leave the country, I'm an American first.
And they're like, I need you to account for this.
Yes.
Right? And I'm like, I really appreciate, for me, I'm like, I really appreciate it. I always come home with a renewed sense of like, oh, I have work to do in the belly of the beast, and I have to take it very seriously. And none of it is tearing down people who are being human. All of it is figuring out how to tear down inhumane systems. Right? So consequences, I think, are great. And I think they happen at the level of relationship.
So the consequences can't be in the comments section. Is that what I'm asking?
I don't think that they work. I haven't seen them work there. Even when people get embarrassed, like sometimes they'll just shut down their account, they'll turn off their comments. There's too many ways to slide around it. But this is one of the things, I remember Kanye, there was one of the moments with Kanye where he did some stuff, and I was like, how do we, this is also mental illness plays such a huge role in this stuff. Where I'm like, how do we walk this line of being like, we know this person has mental illness. We know they're unwell. We know they regularly go off their meds. We know what it looks like when that happens. We probably all have someone in our lives or in our families or someone that we love who is on medication and doesn't go on it all the time or has these kind of moments. And it's so fascinating for me to be like, oh, he doesn't have people around him.
That was for me too.
For me, I looked at him and I was like, oh, he doesn't have people around him. I'm not going to keep tuning into what he does. Because that should be private. It shouldn't actually be something that everyone's seeing, but he doesn't have people around him. And that happens a lot, I think, with celebrity, right? Is you get boosted out of relationship and everyone's like, why are you like that? It's like, because you don't have relationship. I really think, I always, as an organizer, I'm like, community is always the answer. That's the way you get brought back. And community will tell you consequences. I had an experience myself where I had crossed a boundary. I was facilitating a session and I hooked up with someone who was in the session. They weren't my direct person, but they were someone who had still been in the session and I knew better. And my team sat me down, the other facilitator sat me down. They were like, that wasn't appropriate. And I was like, oh, first of all, how'd you know? But I was like, Yeah, it was. I wasn't hiding either. I was just like, oh, talk to me about this. And they were like, you need to learn about boundaries. And here's what you need to understand. And here's why. And here's everything about it. And it was like a revelation for me as a 31-year, I was like, I'm grown and I know my stuff. But that was a place that I was weak. That was a place where I didn't yet understand how important. I didn't see myself as powerful. So it didn't occur to me that I could be wielding power.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, I don't wield power. I'm just a girl.
Yes.
I'm just a Black girl. Like, no, I don't have power, even when I was in a position of power. So, and I think that also happens a ton, where people don't know the impact that they're having, don't know the power they have. Mm-hmm. Consequence helps you come into awareness and right relationship with your power, with your necessary boundaries, and then what you need to practice. When I'm attracted to someone now, I'm always asking questions to find out what is our power dynamic, right? Like, I want to make sure. Well, I'm really interested in, like, have you been in therapy? Okay. Right? I'm really interested in, like, what do you know about how your trauma? Because I'm like, I assume everyone has some. Yeah. So if I meet someone and they're like, I don't know, I'm like, then we can't go together, because my power is, I've been working on my shadow side. I can wield it responsibly, but you need to really be able to hold your own. I ask how they fight. I ask how their last breakup went.
How do you fight?
How do you fight? Because if you don't know how to fight, you can't be with me. Because I'm really smart. I will be like,
I'll wear you out.
I'll wear you out, and then I'll get bored, because I'm like, you can't even fight with me. Yeah. How are we supposed to, like, how am I supposed to, I don't know, I make passion. Right? The passion for me is in the fact that we're not the same person. Yeah. And so I ask those questions. And then I also pay attention to how they act, because the answers are like who they want to be. And then what actually happens is who you are. Right? Yeah. So I'm like, I'm very interested in all of my relationships now. Power dynamics being clear, transparent, understood. Okay. And I learned that lesson through the consequences of that misstep.
Okay, so I love this connection to power. Yeah. For some reason, this keeps circling for me lately. I'm hearing this from you. I'm hearing it from, I spent some time with some housing organizers recently whose entire framework of discourse is you are powerful, and let's figure out how, right? And so this keeps circling for me. And so there's something there I probably need to figure out.
Well, do you feel powerful?
Well, that's what they kept asking me. Yeah. And I thought, and what your point here, which was, it is difficult in a world that defines you in relationship to someone else more powerful to ever think that you have enough power to do something to someone else. And I do think that is a trip. And I've tried to be very mindful of the fact as my life has changed. I know I can't cuss you out the same way. Right? Yes. I can't complain about the bad service I got at a store. That's right. Because it truly is unfair. Right? And I, to be thoughtful about it. But that's professionally, personally.
Yes. Which is actually where it matters in some ways the most, right? Yeah. Like, and I even think about intergenerational power dynamics, right? And looking up, looking down. So I'm like, I look at my parents and I'm like, oh, for a while the power dynamic was clear. You were in power and I had less. And now I've gone out and I've developed my analysis and I've actually reclaimed my power. I've claimed my power as a woman. I've claimed all these things. Part of my job is to bring that back to my parents and be like, Mom, there's more. Yeah. Dad, there's more about our Blackness that I want us to talk about. And I want you to feel into the power you have that you have accumulated in your lifetime. I want us to have transparent conversations about economy as a family. We have shifted completely where we sit inside this country as 5 of us, but we have extended family that hasn't necessarily all made that shift. What is our power dynamic in our family now? It's changed. So we can't just to me, I'm like, we can't just all get together and be like, it's all the same. I'm like, no, it's different. And I just moved back to the South, as I said. I reverse migrated in 2021, and all of my family, all my peoples are from the Carolinas. So I'm really sitting with this question in a new way, because I'm like, I see y'all motherfuckers all the time now. Yeah. I need to be in a right relationship with you. It's different from when it was like, oh, once every 3 years I'm gonna go down see grandma's house or whatever and be like, hi, I'm the daughter that exactly performance of the holidays. Like, I want to be in a relationship, and there's some folks in my family I'm sitting down with now. I'm like, have we ever talked one-on-one outside of this? I want to, right? So because I want to understand, again, I'm like, I want to understand the power dynamics I have within this family. I think I don't know why this is coming up right now, but I think you'll understand it. Something happens when your visibility shifts, where you don't feel it, right? Yeah. Especially if it happens during a pandemic or something.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
I'm like,
that didn't help.
I didn't know exactly. So I was like, when pandemic started, I was like, pleasure activism had just come out. I hadn't really toured it. And, I was just like, I'm just literally a girl living in my house talking about orgasms, And then I kept putting out books and my visibility kept getting bigger. But then, so when people came back outside, they were like, oh, Adrienne Maree Brown. I was like, girl, who? What are you talking about? Like, I fart, whatever, right? Just like, I'm a person, like, but I was like, oh, I'm trying to deflect that my power has shifted.
Yes, because we're uncomfortable.
Yes.
Can I tell you, and this is going to sound horrible. Look at me already apologizing. It's going to sound like I'm name dropping, but I'm not.
Oh, drop that name.
I'm not. Do you know who said that to me recently?
Obama.
Oprah.
I was like, it's someone with the O. I can just feel it. I can feel it.
She says to me,
yes.
I was not comfortable.
That's
her,
right. Yes.
was not comfortable being powerful until she was 60 years old.
Wow.
And she said, what you're deflecting is that you have changed.
Yes.
Right? And if you feel uncomfortable with that, you put other people in a position to not understand your boundaries or where theirs are either.
That's right.
Yeah,
or not feel like they get to have them.
Is unfair to the other person.
That's right. That's right. Because also, if people are relying on you, right? Like I'm like, oh, people's salaries now rely on me, and I rely on them. They help hold any boundary I'm trying to set now. I need them to feel in their full power to bring something. It's something we've been working on with my team. That I'm like, we're moving at the speed of trust too. I need y'all to trust me, and I need to trust you. So if I do something, like if I cross a boundary, which I love to do, I love to be like, I won't take any more. I won't say yes to any more blurbs. I promise. I promise. I'm not gonna do it. I don't have the time. I promise. And then someone great slides into my DMs, and I was like,
a blurb.
Girl, I was like, oh my God, like I always wanted to talk to you because I'm still the person, right? Yes. So I'm like, if that person reaches out, you're like, I don't know. So then I have to come back to my team, and I have to be accountable and be like, I said yes to something in my DMs. I'm sorry. And then they're like, okay, you have to figure out how it's gonna happen. Me by myself?
You'll stop saying yes in your DMs.
You're gonna stop saying yes in your DMs because you're like, we are at capacity, right? And I keep trying to be transparent about this, that DEI funding has been cut, and for people who stood up for Palestine, our financial landscape right now is a completely different situation than it was a year ago. So we have to be really thoughtful right now about our capacity. I'm like, everyone's working less hours. Everyone has taken a cut. We're all figuring out how to make it through this. We're like, we're not giving up on solidarity. We're going to keep pushing, but we don't have what we had before. Yeah. So I'm like, even that, I'm like, oh, they get to tell me now, like, if you take that on, you're taking that on, because no one else has any capacity to take on an additional small thing. There's nothing small. When you have power, everything seems small. It seems quick. It seems easy, right?
Fine.
You know what I mean?
Fine. All right.
When you're the one who's receiving the like, oh, there's one more thing on the calendar that I have to call and do and this and give you the copy of the book and make sure it's printed out the way you need it. Right? Okay. The labor becomes invisible the more power you have. So you have to do the work to stay in relationship with people so that you can be like, you need to help me see the labor. Right?
Okay. Seriously, on a Thursday, I don't know.
95 degrees.
The more power you have, the more invisible the labor becomes.
Nugget, write that down.
Yeah. And this is, again, our political landscape reeks of this, right? Yeah. Where people will just say something on a podium, and it's like,
and upend somebody's life.
You'll upend somebody's life, up an entire organization, up an entire direction. Like you're like, oh, you don't understand the power you hold, or if you do, you're not wielding it responsibly. And in this moment, right, whenever we have 60-something days left, right, before this election, Kamala has more power than she understands that she has. and we're pushing her to use it, right?
As leverage.
She has leverage.
That she won't have.
She will not
once
have
she's
it.
elected.
As soon as she's elected, that leverage will not be there because we are the leverage on the leverage she has, right?
Yeah.
So right now, we have to be like, Kamala, use your power. Do not let them tell you that you can do this without us.
Yeah.
We are part of your power, right? And she will either hear that or she won't hear that. And then we keep organizing, you know, and I keep telling people, I'm like, I'm not interested in the goodness of a candidate.
Don't
The
care
goodness of a
at all.
politician.
Do
Don't play with me, okay?
Yeah.
I date. I'm like, girl. So all I need to know is, can I organize you or not? And
Can I organize
you or not, right? Because for all the people who are doing the invisible labor, they have to be able to organize anyone who says that they're going to represent them. Or else we have to do away with the representative system because it doesn't work. Hint, hint. That's my favorite path.
Yeah.
So, you know, part of what I'm interested in, I always identify as a post-nationalist because I think that the way that this country was founded and set up is a dysfunctional and already failed experiment. But I think all the people in it are not dysfunctional, failed experiments.
Okay.
We are wonderful. So we just have to find what are the new experiments, what are the new ways. And part of why I'm excited about the organizing for Kamala is I'm like, she's going to let you down, but you don't have to let each other down, right? Like 40,000 Black women coming together to do anything, daunting.
Yeah.
We should be excited. That's good news, right?
Yeah.
I trust Black women to do things, to do what we set our minds to. And then white women, and then the white men, and then the Indian women. I was like, all these folks coming together and being like, we can move resources and move energy. All of that matters because when people care and they put their energy behind something, that's when they're more likely to keep their skin. They're like, my skin is in the game.
Yeah.
I showed up for this.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, when she lets you down, because she's a politician, she's
do.
literally serving a different master.
Yeah.
When that happens, when you recognize that she's not your homegirl, but she is doing her job, and you've got to leverage that, great. What else will you be able to do with that power, right? I'm interested in how do you serve your community with that power? How do we become the solutions that we keep asking someone to provide to us, right? I think you were saying this as we were talking about the state. It's like when the state ceases to provide, community is the answer. And that community can come in ways that are very
violent,
or
exactly. It can be communal.
Or it can be communal.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, if you try communal and it doesn't work, that's how it's like the path is always clear to me. But again, I was politicized before this, right? So to me, it's always like, nonviolent organizing is what we always want to be able to do. Nonviolent organizing is how we want to be able to shape our way forward together. Consequences are when that doesn't work, right? So part of what we're living in right now is a period of immense violent consequence. We have everyone in our country armed to the teeth with no skills for conflict resolution, with no culture of conflict resolution, with no culture of being accountable for the harm that we have caused to Indigenous people, to Black people, to everybody, right? So we're in I keep talking about we're living in an open wound. And it's festering. The whole world is a part of it. The European countries, I'm like, y'all started the wound. You're not better than us. You came over here and were like, truly, ran, right? And some of y'all stayed and you got mad at us. Anyway, it's a whole cycle, but we're living in that wound, and things don't fester for long. They either die or they heal. To me, healing would be the victory, and I think it is possible. I don't know if the structure will look the same. I think it'll look, we grew up when there was a USSR and a Yugoslavia, right? Things change. National formations change, but people take care of each other.
That's a great example, by the way. I haven't thought of that in years. We saw several countries go through.
We see it, and it happens all the time with countries we're not paying attention to as well, right? But even those, I think of the USSR as I'm like, that's something like comparable to what we live in right now, where you have a very vast social belief systems trying to be held under one container. It's like, these just may never be compatible. Like, I don't know that I'm ever going to be able to share any space with someone who really hates the earth and really wants to kill me. I don't think I should have to do that for it to be a functional America. I'm like, if y'all need to go secede and take something, go away. But leave us the South. I think that's the mistake. I was like, don't think you're going to get the South, because the South is ours, and I will fight for it.
I feel strongly about that too. Yes. I'm like, take Connecticut.
Honey, Delaware is right there.
I can't even find it on
on the map.
No,
really, I just
was
know
like,
it's up there.
Yeah, so I was like, you know, and there's some places in the sort of upper, there's some places.
Take one to the Dakotas or something like
yeah,
that.
You know, my thing is like, indigenous folks would actually be the ones that I would turn to for this and be like, y'all, where do the racists need to go? Where they could really have to do some work.
Yeah.
I think that would also change their lives. Because I'm like, I think you become racist when you think someone else is going to do the work for you and you're better than them. I think that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
So now, even though that no one else will do the work for you, there's that imprint is in your system that you're like, someone else is supposed to be doing all this hard labor for me.
Black jobs.
Black jobs.
That's the black jobs. That's good. That's very good because you're right. You've got a love letter to the white people in your life in this book. That is somewhat this.
Yeah.
Right? Trying to get them to understand this part.
Yeah.
How's that going?
Well, I think, you know, I feel like I'm in an authentic relationship with the white people in my life who have opted into that with me. And then I have extended family who I'm like, they haven't opted in yet. We're just repairing. So I went through a 10-year period. One of the things I did was I set a hard boundary. When I came out to my family, some of them had a really negative reaction to that, and they sent me some scripture that they thought I think would help me, but it made me gayer, and so I was like, I gotta go out and kiss a girl right away before this lands in me. But you know, my partner wasn't welcome. There's this kind of energy, and so I was like, okay, then I won't be coming, right? And then my sisters flanked me, and they're like, we also won't come, and we're not going to bring the grandkids. Like, it's real.
The grandkids.
I was like, I know I'm not worth jack, but these grandkids, though.
Yep.
So they're on my side, you know, in the pettiest way. But then finally, there's been an extension of desire. Like, we miss you, and now everyone's got a gay grandkid. It's not a big deal. Blah blah blah. Right? The culture has shifted, because this is my thing: is the thing that Project 2025 and MAGA and everyone's trying to do, the thing that they're trying to take us back to, is literally not a possibility.
It's not physically possible.
Literally,
that's right.
Yeah, materialized. Right.
Yeah.
I was like, once you're gay, you're gay, right? And once you get to be gay out loud for one day of your life, you're just like, never going back, right? Yeah. Same thing with abortion, right? You can make it dangerous, but you cannot take it away. You cannot take my power away. I know that I am not less than any man. You cannot convince me otherwise. Not one man. Even Obama smart ass. I'm like, no. I have moral superiority or whatever, you know. Anyway, and I met him. He's, you know,
darling.
He's quite something.
Like, you get why he became
I'm
president.
like, if you weren't the president yet, I would be like, that's the only thing. Leo, you know, he's got the energy.
Yes,
he's got the vibes, right?
And knows it. He's one of these who knows.
He's like, he walks in, he's like, you know. But I was just like, okay, you're doing the job that God called you to do, right? And you're raising the contradictions that God called for you to raise. All that. But me and my whites, him and his whites, everybody has their whites.
Yep.
And so for me, the most important relationships have been the closest. So I'm like, my mom has been really important to me, because she's the one who has continued to stay in a relationship with her family. And because she made a spiritual commitment to do so, she has stayed in that commitment, right? And so I've been like, if I can't go, that doesn't mean I can't help her go, right? That doesn't mean I can't sit and have the conversations with her, debrief with her, give her stuff that's like, here's some reading, here's a way to protect your soul as you go into that space and come back out of it. And to understand what she's up to, right? I have some close friends, not a lot, right? It's actually pretty hard, I think. In this past 10 years, it's been very hard for me to develop new relationships with white people. And why? I think there was, I think it's passing now, but I think there was a moment where what happened with what it meant to be white and to be woke became so performative that I couldn't be around it. Like, the same thing happened for me with spoken word. So,
same.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
Where it's
yes, that is a great example.
Okay, you know exactly what I mean. So it's like I love spoken word. Like, I'm probably a spoken word artist, but at a certain point, everyone started saying the same cadence. When I open up my third eye, right after. And so I was just like, I don't know if this is a good poem or a bad poem anymore because I can't hear it. I can't tell. So the same thing happened with white folks where they were coming up and they were like, I'm so sorry for my existence and here's my land acknowledgement and here's my this and that and the other thing. But I was like, I can't feel you. And I don't know if you can feel yourself, right? Because you've been corrected with harshness, corrected without love, and corrected without relationship. And so now I see some of that shifting. I see white folks, a lot of white folks coming back into a sense of, okay, I'm a whole being. And I've got a lineage that I'm accountable for, and I'm accounting for it. And so I've been meeting folks now that I'm like, okay, we can rock, right? Because all I need in this world, I'm like, if you can be a person with me being a person, we can do this, right?
I love that.
Yes.
Can we be people together?
Can we be people together? Because everything else was made up. Like I talk about this, I was gonna include a piece in here that I decided to hold it because I think it's a whole book and I think it's not one that I have to write alone, about an expansive Blackness. And part of the reason I was saying that is because I'm like, so many of the identities we sit in and we fight for were put on us by our oppressors. And then we have tried to find our way into them. But they're not real, right? But we make something real. Right, we decide, okay, we're gonna make real culture. This is one of my favorite things about the Black Power movement. There was a moment where I was like, whatever y'all said it was, we understand it. We're gonna make it into the most powerful thing. And it was the most beautiful, when you watch the shift that happened from the 40s to the 60s in the chin. It's just beautiful to me. I've tried to write about it. I just think it's the most beautiful thing. So I'm like, I want to see that for more of us, right? I want to see more and more people be like, history and capitalism and colonizers, they tried to make us all think that we're something other than what we are. What we are is earthlings. What we are is loved by an abundant earth. What we are is people who have vast differences of culture. And any two of us that you meet are going to have a different arrangement of those things. And if we have some similarities, if we both have Black dads, we can talk about what that's like. There's going to be some similarities. But even those will be shaped by the culture of our time. One of my lovers comes from Africa, and his Black dad is a totally different experience than my Black dad. And I love that because I'm like, because that's real. The reality is not this box of culture. The reality is culture is like an ocean, a river. It's lightning. It's lightning bugs. That's what culture is. So I get really excited by that because then you're talking to a white person, and I'm like, dang, how you really get this? That's part of why I included Ursula Le Guin in here because I was like,
I was going to ask you about
really
that.
Get this.
And this became your person. So you write about Ursula one as a person, not just as a figure.
Yes.
You go through her letters and which I love, by the way.
Yes.
I've never seen her letters. I think those
She's spicy.
It made me want to start writing letters again.
Me too. I was like, I need to write more letters to the editor.
Because all of our stuff is going to be digital when we're gone, and it doesn't have the same impact.
Not the same thing. But going through Bell Hooks' archive, same thing.
Yes.
She's flavorful.
So, yes. I was just talking to the Bell Hooks estate a couple of weeks ago. The thrill of my life is that Thick was on her bedside when she passed away.
Oh, yeah. That'll do.
And they wanted me to know.
I'm
so glad they told me.
Oh, I'm so glad you know that.
Yeah.
We don't that was the case because she didn't like all the things.
I know. I would tell her, I said, don't tell me she liked it.
No. She didn't like
just being there was fine.
Exactly. No, because that's the thing.
Homegirl was, yes, indeed. Yeah.
She was opinionated.
Yeah. And Ursula the same way.
Yes.
I don't like the way you moving in the world, but I'm gonna try. The letters that you chose are beautiful because they are so humanizing.
Yes. Yeah.
But what is it about Ursula that to you feels like a twin flame?
Yeah, I think, when I came into it reading Octavia Butler, and I was reading her over and over again, and there's a ton of her that I see in myself. Weird Black girl, doesn't quite fit anywhere, massive imagination. So she covered a lot of the ground, but I felt like Octavia, the way she wrote was always like, I'm just gonna try to get you there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's the stuff, here's the story, here's what happened. Ursula was like, I wanna be very literary. I wanna write poetry, I wanna write songs, I'm gonna world build something that is like so much bigger, right? So with Octavia, you know, I like comparing the two of them because I'm like, they both satisfy the shit out of me in very different ways. But with Octavia, I felt like I could always feel this world every single time. Every single time, no matter where we were, I was like, I feel this world. With Ursula, she took me places where I was like, I don't know this place. Like,
I don't know who the white person is.
I don't know who the white person is in your story. I can't tell if you're. I don't know. I truly don't understand the culture of these people or what you've come up with, and that felt familiar to me. That I was like, I think of myself as something that hasn't existed before. You know, I feel like I've said I feel like one of the freest people to ever live, and not fully free because it's an interconnected system. But I'm like, I can feel in myself that I'm like, I'm really guided by curiosity. I'm really tapped into joy. I'm really doing some things in this life that like are not familiar. You know, as I do them, I'm like, can I do this? Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna do it. Like I want to try it. I'm a kid who was really encouraged to just try. And I see that Ursula Le Guin to me is like, this is what it looks like when you come from a really deeply supported, functional space and you get support to imagine that your imagination can just really run wild. And I feel like, I see how she structured her life. You know, she really focused on stability of home for the sake of, and I've been making that choice. You know, I had a really wild 20s and 30s. That's where I wrote Pleasure Activism from. It was fun.
That's fun.
And I learned a lot. But right now I'm like, part of what coming here was about was like, I want to be sitting on a porch.
Yep.
Yeah. I just want to be sitting on a porch.
Yeah.
I want to spend as much of my life sitting on a porch as I can. I want to hear cicadas. I want to know the blue heron. I want to know the squirrels. I want to know the trees in my backyard. And then I want to write stories that come from being rooted rather than stories that come from being, you know, tossed about. Yeah. And again, for someone who has the history I have, right, of enslaver and enslaved and coming through this tension, this turmoil, this torture of what being in the South meant, to be like, I'm a Black queer woman happy on a porch in the South. Yeah. That feels revolutionary to me, right? And I send it back, you know, when my rituals, I'm always sending the good back. You know, I'm like, I want to send this bath back to my grandmother. I want to send this one all the way back to the ones I don't know. Like, you did this somehow. You're part of this. And I feel like Ursula, it's such a weird thing because when I realized, I think when I first was reading her, I didn't even understand she was a white woman. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I think I read The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas first, and I was like, who wrote this revolutionary text? And I read The Dispossessed, and I was like, I think this is a white lady from Oregon. But she gets
for some reason from Oregon is what trips me out.
From Oregon, because like, if you've been to Oregon, it's like so Walida y Marisha was one of my first collaborators. We worked on Octavia's Brood together, and she does brilliant organizing and brilliant education about Oregon and how Oregon really was like, we are about white people and only white people, and you can't be here if you're a Black person.
That's right.
So I'm like, but Ursula Le Guin was sitting up in Oregon writing.
We had sundown towns. Oregon was a sundown state. You could not be in these
They're like, what are you doing inside our state? I'm like, well, I can't be like, what the, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I went there, you know, to Eugene to be in the papers. And I'd never done anything like that. You know, I'm like, I'm not an academic, right? So I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. I'm just like sifting through this and while feeling this place. And that part of the world is so wild and beautiful. It's like whales and redwood trees. It's just wild.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, something about the nature around her, I think, is what allowed her to tap into something beyond the culture that she should have accumulated, you know, sort of, not accumulated, what is it called? Like,
acculturated or
just, I can't think of the right word, but it's just like, there's something she was supposed to become, and she chose not to become that. And she chose to become something else, right? And I think imagination, that's the way you can jailbreak yourself out of these systems, even if you're in a small town in Oregon, right? Even if you're in a small town in Texas. I mean, I see this happening right now. That's the thing that they can't see. I was like, everywhere, there are young people and they are online, and they're just looking and they're seeing stuff, and they're like, I can exist because that exists. I can exist because this artist exists. I can exist because Lil Nas X exists. I can exist because Chappell Roan exists. I can exist. And I think about that too, that I'm like, because Audre Lorde existed, I can exist. Because Lucille Clifton existed, I can exist. And also because Mariah Carey existed, you know? Like, there's all these different shapers that were like, I'm gonna, you know, Mariah Carey, I've been thinking of her tenderly because she just had this massive loss of her mother and her sister. And I grew up a big girl, like under my covers, like.
Did you read her biography? Did you read her biography?
I read it, yes.
Yeah, so knowing how complicated her relationship with her mother somehow has made the news even more.
It's even more tender. Because you don't, that's not a guarantee that you get to make peace or have a good relationship with anyone in your family. There's no guarantee. In fact, opposite is usually the case, right? For most people, our family relationships are the most complicated and the least resolved, right? We do work with our friends and our coworkers and other people that we don't necessarily risk with our family, and then they're gone. And then we just live the rest of our lives like having these conversations. So I've been thinking about her, but I think about being little mixed girls, you know, being little Black girls, being little young people and imagining ourselves. You know, I'm like, didn't everyone sit in your room with a microphone in your hand trying to imagine yourself into something? You know? So I'm a big fan of imagination, and for me it's humbling and exciting that Ursula Le Guin existed and that she imagined the way she did, right?
I never thought about her context the way that you did, and you also talk about her relationship with her husband, and it was just really, it was profound for me, actually, that your reflections on this, because I'm not sure I ever would have thought about it. But and you're saying even more here, right? Yeah, the idea that you do this world building, which is, I think, different, by the way. I was thinking this when I was reading that essay. It is a little different than doing the sort of like critical science fiction work.
Yes.
World building to me is, I write nonfiction. I don't understand living in a world where you created all the rules.
Yeah. It's really fun.
And not to draw on the rules that you know the best.
Or to subvert them, you know, to figure out. Because I think one of the biggest things, when I am writing fiction, when I first started, Walida actually had to gather me up because I turned in this story that I was like, I know this is a good story. She was like, the patriarchy in this story is heavy. Like, do you understand that? And I was like, what? No, he just takes her in the closet. Oh, I see. I see what you're saying. That would not be cool. But in my, you know, in my brain, in my imagination, I'm like, there's no gender. So yeah, no, like, right? So what I love that Ursula was very rigorous about being like, I'm not making it perfect. I'm not going to say that you would necessarily want to go there. Like, I think one of the things Octavia always did was like, there's something compelling in this, right? Even if it's devastating. I mean, Parables, which we are now in the time of, Parables is a really devastating story, but folded into the pages is the Earthseed way of looking at the world, right? So there's something in there that says we have a destiny that's beyond all this. Even that gives you a resolution, there's something compelling to move towards. Ursula didn't always do that. She was like, this world is really boring. But you can have a 4-way marriage. And there's a morning and an evening man and a morning and an evening woman, and there's all these arrangements of how they mix with each other, and nothing else really happens here. Right? And I love that. I'm like, oh, I would always imagine a 4-way marriage would be very passionate, dynamic, and no. She was like, it's actually
trash.
But you have multiple people who could do it. Yes, right? Right. So I love stuff like that too, where I'm like, oh, how many things could we make normal? How many different? That's what, you know, world building is. Like, can I make this seem normal? Can you read it? You know, Samuel Delaney also does that really brilliantly, where you're like reading something, you're like, oh yeah, it makes sense to me that everyone is into hairy men. That's the most attractive people in one of the worlds he has. And by 4 page, you know, I remember reading it and being like, that's not the world I live in. In the world I live in, everyone's shaving and like waxing and like you never get to see that like yummy hair shit, right?
Yummy hair shit?
Now I feel that way because he changed me. He changed me. Now I still have like probably a limit, you know?
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Right? But everyone's different. But now when I meet, especially gay men who are into very hairy men, I'm like, I get your kink. I understand it because someone was doing that world building and they like made it normal.
Yeah. I love this idea of what can you make normal.
Yeah.
Because normalcy,
we set culture.
Normalcy is a interesting trap.
Yes.
Right? And I think I have spent all of my life trying to figure out how the things that are normal became normal.
Yes.
Because to me, they've always felt very strange.
I see that in your work. I see that in your work. And I think this is one of the things, one of the small joys inside this election cycle for me has been this thing about weird, right?
Yes.
Being like, as a weird girl, I was like, I'm willing to let this go and mean something else right now.
I'm glad you were because
it
was powerful in its way.
Because I understand what they're saying, right?
Exactly.
Which is like, this thing that y'all are trying to make normal, it's not normal. And actually, that's a big part of what I'm trying to say in the book is I'm like, these things that we're trying to correct for, that's off course. That's not something that actually is normal. That shouldn't necessarily be something we normalize. We shouldn't normalize police killing people in their homes. We shouldn't normalize sending billions and billions of weapons away to other places while we are hungry and houseless. Like that doesn't make you can't make it make sense. But it's been normalized, and so people are just like, well, we just have to have it that way, and you just have to deal with it. I'm like, no, I'm a culture shaper, so I'm going to make something else normal. That's my job. And part of why I'm like unapologetic about more and more of myself, right? I'm like, oh, I'm fat. You're going to have to deal with it. It's going to be sexy, and you're going to be kind of weirded out by the fact that you're attracted to it, but fucking deal with it, because it's here, and you want it, you know? Like, I'm normalizing that. Right? And not, you know, and with complexity, right? I'm like, I'm not normalizing unhealthiness. I always say that. I'm like, I'm normalizing people are many different sizes and they're all fucking hot, you know? I'm normalizing that you can be, you can have multiple opinions because even that I see now. That's one of the things that I see happen is where people are like, if you are progressive, this is your slate. Yeah. Right? For me, I'm like, no, if I'm progressive or if I'm radical, if I'm revolutionary, my state is asking the questions, right? My state is holding on to curiosity, fighting for humanity. So if you come up with a policy that doesn't align with that, I don't care what color.
Even if it's progressive.
Yeah.
So-called progressive.
So-called progressive. I'm like, because that's how, you know, when we slip right, that's what's happening, right? Is we're being told, well, this is what we think now. We just dropped the death penalty off the platform and this is what we think now. I'm like, no. Wait, right? We have to be the ones who are like, loving correction. There's a different course and we have to get back on it, right? And I don't think that the course is necessarily heading left, right? Okay. I think that the course is heading forward, right? So I always say that. I'm like, right now, what we define as like the left, I'm like, I'm not trying to pull from the right. I'm trying to get us all oriented towards a future where we all get to be there.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay. That helps me, actually, in some ways.
Because there's somewhere.
Yeah.
There always has been something. You know, we started somewhere and we're going somewhere.
Yeah.
And when we get off course, we stagnate. Culture stagnates. Everything stagnates because we're not actually moving forward anymore. We're just circling around in a little stagnant pool. Yeah. And I think the U.S. has become kind of a stagnant pool, right? But it's really stinky. It's really fucking up the whole river, right? We've dammed. There's some beaver stuff.
We're the Florida
right?
country.
We're the Florida of nations, right? But it doesn't have to be that way. And you can still have a good time on the Miami Strip.
Yes,
I just feel like. But also, there's also people. You know, the thing that I always hold on to, and I have a character in my novella series. I have a character who goes off to Florida and. I thought I was letting her go, but then she came back for this last novella piece because she was like, Florida, like, and I was like, I need to contend with what's happening in Florida, right? That I can't write a utopia that doesn't include people being okay in Florida.
That's right.
Yeah.
There cannot be a utopia unless you solve the South.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you solve dystopia. You know, I was like, I'm really excited about the solution. I'm not going to give away but it's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good because it really is. This is the problem we're always dealing with is like, if people are trying to sell you a utopia on a finite earth that we all share, close the door, right? No, thank you. I want something that this is utopia, right? Earth is insanely perfect for us. Like, it is the place we really belong. I really even thought about this. Octavia said our destiny is to take root amongst the stars. I'm like, here. We are amongst the stars here. We have to take root here. This is our place. This is like, that's the way I feel about the South right now. I'm like, this is my Palestine. This is my holy, sacred land. This is where my ancestors are buried. This is where they bled. This is where they worked. This is mine. As much as any place in the world is mine, this is mine. Which means I have to find right relationship with the indigenous people here. So I'm like, I'm here now. You're here. I want to be in right relationship. You tell me what I need to do. Help me understand it. And I need to look around and see who else loves the land. That's who gets to be here, right?
That would cut a lot of people out.
Yes, and it should. It should, right? I don't think the future is going to be compatible with people who don't love the earth. You know? I think that you're going to have to either get in alignment with the earth or go, right? And I can't wait. I'm like, Elon, take your little ship.
I was just about to say, they're figuring it out.
Go.
I do think that this turn towards wanting to colonize space is about not wanting to accept that you cannot be bigger than natural resources than the earth. You can't. It doesn't matter that you have $1 trillion. Everybody's obsessed now with us having the first trillionaire. You know, like, it literally doesn't matter.
That's the worst person on earth. And it doesn't matter if there's no water. Like, that's the thing, right? Money is made up. And so we make up these things, and then we're like, that matters more than things we didn't make up. I didn't make water. I didn't make mountains. I didn't make the sky. Those things were created for me to live on. And that is our wealth. That's the only wealth we have. Each other and this beautiful earth, right? And it's what's always going to be our wealth. So when someone tries to fake me out, I was like, I've been to a mansion. That's just whack. I've never been in a mansion that was fun to be in. That's too much walking. Like, what are we doing? Where's the cozy? I need to be cozy. I want to relax, right? All the people I know who have serious wealth have cozy situations, right? So anyway, I don't know where we were going there.
I know, but
I think we did figure out the whole future.
For whatever reason, you made me think about, you remember when they found that Donald Trump's gold toilet?
Yes.
For me, that was just such a symbol of everything about, like, gratuitous wealth. A gold toilet.
You don't have anything. This is when the emperor has no clothes, right? Because I'm just like, you forgot what shit is.
Exactly. Literally the most basic of human functions.
That's right. It's not supposed to be a 24 karat gold situation.
No. I can't even be comfortable. Have you felt gold?
No.
Like, sitting on that, I was just like, it can't be comfortable.
No, but again, it's not even about that, right? I think that once you lose connectivity with people, nothing can fill the hole in you.
That's right.
Nothing can fill the hole, but you're going to spend the rest of your life trying to buy it, right? Trying to buy that nothing.
You said something at the very start that I want to circle back to.
Let's go there.
You said, gotcha. That's why I thought our time is perfect. I want to circle because I like
I don't know if you see.
Say it again and wanted to have a moment for you to say it, like, really, because you went through it quickly. That organizing is what makes you feel better. People don't understand. I've spent time at organizing spaces that I think people would imagine is so sad. Like, I went to did what Sister Song once. They are having a blast. Music was pumping. They eating empanadas. Like, life was good. I see the same thing when people are canvassing in, like, subsidized housing. How does this? How do we work this into our understanding of correcting others and also correcting ourselves, which is, I think, a lot of our projection. So can you say to us again why organizing is the tonic for the dispossession?
Discontent, right? I think that the biggest thing is, so often when you're doing that online comment stuff, you're feeling alone, and then you're deepening your aloneness because you're going online and you're being like, and you're messed up, and you're messed up, and you're messed up. So you're just being like, no, I hate everything, right? That's what you're building inside yourself. When you go organize, when you get with other people, when you find political home, political home can never be an electoral process, right? Electoral process and political party are not political home. okay?
Very
so
important.
I want to make that really
Very
clear.
good point.
When I say political home, what I mean is an organization of other people like you who care about what you care about. It might be anything, right? It might be a multitude of things. Here locally, we've seen such gorgeous work happen. Mothers for Ceasefire emerged, and literally amazing moms who are coming together in community and have gatherings that you can come to and be with other people who are like, I don't want to see kids killed anywhere, and I don't want to see them killed in Palestine. I don't want to see them killed. Like, what are we going to do? And then you get to be in relationship with moms who are the best and their kids who are the best, right? And then all of a sudden you find yourself in community that's caring for each other. And that's happened to me over and over again in my life. Part of why I ended up in Durham was because of Black Organizing for Leadership and Dignity, which is a group that does somatics and politics and organizing all together. And I kept coming down and looking around and being like, these are the people who care, right? And I think that is maybe the fundamental aspect of what a political home is find the other people who care and are willing to try, right? Sitting in your house yelling at the TV, sitting in your house yelling at people, that's not trying, right? You're not even giving your beautiful, sacred effort of your life to the things you care about. So even if you lose, right, which often we do, organizing is tempering the losses and the victories. One of the things I'm also trying to get us to be better at is noticing when we do have victories.
Oh, yeah, right? We're not very good at that.
We're not great at that. So there was this moment, I was feeling so distraught after the DNC because I wanted someone from the uncommitted movement, a Palestinian person, to be able to speak. I was like, we lost. And I was speaking to a Palestinian organizer who was like, we've never had someone who was running for office speak about our existence, our sovereignty. That's never happened before. And so, yeah, we didn't get everything we wanted. We pressured. Who knows how much that pressure led to that sentence? We have to claim that victory even as we keep pushing. I was like, political home is so helpful, because turning to that person who's like, I'm part of a whole body of people organizing around this, so we can see all the things that are happening. Even the uncommitted movement folks, they were like, we're trying to help this person win. We're not, I was like, oh, like political home is much more nuanced, much more deep, much more human, much more complex than a lot of what we see happening in online spaces with individuals who are not rooted in political home. And I'm willing to have a much different argument with people who are like, I'm part of a whole organization, and we're thinking together, we're dreaming together. Part of what I've been posting is, here's what different movements and groups are saying right now, rather than just individuals. I'm like, I'm less interested right now in anything that an individual says. I say that as an individual. But an individual who's rooted in a lot of communities is, if you're working with a bunch of people, like I posted something from the North Star Socialist Organization, I posted something from Working Families Party. I'm like, I'm interested in how people are coming together to tackle these complex questions, not in isolation, but in community. And I think the left is actually doing better than we thought. And I'm excited about that as someone who's been doing that work for almost 30 years now, is the coherence is actually cohering. It's a little bit amazing. Like I literally, for that election series, I tried intentionally to get the widest variety of kinds of people, like folks that I knew were gonna be like, blue no matter who, and folks who are like, fuck this system. I was like, great. And everyone's like, block fascism, build the left. Everything we do to build the left will block fascism. Everything we do to block fascism will build the left. That's what we gotta do. It's like, I was like, my shoulders dropped. I was like, right, we're doing what we always have to do, right? We're building, and by left, again, for me, I see building a way up.
A way up, not left or right, a way up. I love that. Thank you very much. Thank you for everything, actually. Well, I'm not gonna thank you for a couple of the things, because I didn't sign up for that, for most of the things. You said in the book to be honest about yourself. So,
some of the things.
Some of those things.
Some of the things. There's going to be so much fun. I can't wait to check on you in a couple years.
Yes, well. Okay. We wanted to.
No, but seriously, this is such a great conversation. Like, thank you.
Y'all came out and y'all were already talking, so I knew we wanted to leave time for you to talk. to ask questions of Adrienne, and we've got a mic. Mine is going to float around the room. So if you maybe throw up a hand.
And we might want to just do a few.
Great.
That's just
Awesome.
you tell us when it's
Yeah, it's your store.
Yep.
Thank you. This is kind of a dangerous question, but what are the chances that you two will write together?
Oh my gosh.
Would you?
I would, yes.
Nobody has ever
Yes.
been willing to write with me.
I would be so down. I would be so
I
into
have
that.
wanted to do a collaborative project probably my whole creative life.
Let's do
And
something.
people they on
A southern thing. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Listen, I fangirl, so thanks for that. And I'm an Aries rising, so it's gonna happen.
Well, and you did say there are parties. I can come to a party.
Oh yeah, I do
and
game
it's a good
nights.
place to
Yes,
foment
and
ideas.
yes, we foment the revolution there. I highly recommend game nights also as a way to like build community that's not necessarily like having a political meeting, but just invite a bunch of people that you're like, I kind of like you. You seem kind of dope. Whatever. Let's play some Uno. Yeah. You find out so much about people playing Uno. You want people who can like lose well, but aren't trying to lose. That's my perfect person, right? I'm like, if you do lose, just because I'm amazing at Uno, and you're probably gonna lose, I want you to handle that really well, but I want you to be trying to win. I want you to be trying to win the whole time. Or spades.
I'm a little bit more vicious about spades.
You're never, we should, that's what we should do together. We should be spades partners. Okay, I'm so serious. I'm like, Joker, DC's ace. Okay.
Because if you can't bid,
we can't play.
Okay.
Don't talk to me if you said 3 and you had
That's
2.
exactly right. Then I already know where you are.
No.
in the political spectrum.
And we're not going up.
We're
not going up. Okay, sorry. This is great for me.
I'm not going to interrupt the space.
So excited. Okay.
So I'm a professor. I work in academia, and I keep going into faculty meetings and saying, what academia is now, I do not think it will be that. I think it will still exist. It's an institution, but it will not be what it is now in 10 years, and lots of boomer eyes staring back at me confused. And I wonder if you think some of what is in this book is applicable and, you know what I mean, like can be used as soil to do something.
Yes.
Oh gosh, I hope so. So
Yes.
I will point to the specific pieces that I think would be most helpful. One is accountable endings, which is in the second section. So there's the first section is called ruminations. The second section is called murmurations. And those were columns I wrote for Yes Magazine. But there's accountable endings is a big one because I think really orienting to the fact that things do end. Teacup is already broken. Academia is already broken. And everyone I talk to who's an academic is like, this is already broken, which means there's possibility. But first we have to turn and face what's broken. So I think that'll help. And then I think the word for white people and relinquishing the patriarchy, those two pieces, a lot of what's happening in academia and why it's broken is because of white supremacy plus patriarchy. There's also a piece in there for philanthropy. I am really trying to hold philanthropy accountable, but the academic institutions are the biggest endowments. They are able to stay the way they stay because they have money behind them, and that money is shaping the culture. So basically, if we see no matter what area of the world you're working in, if you're orienting that capitalism is part of what you're fighting against, then we're all actually doing aligned work, right? So I think that piece could help, and it's written towards people who are philanthropists, but I think that piece, I think a lot of the thinking in there can also be applied, right?
I would agree. Yeah, absolutely.
So yes. And
part of the problem is it's already ended. We just won't have the funeral. I just wanted to say that.
Ooh. But right, this is
fine. Funerals are good. They're rituals.
Well, and I was gonna say this is one of the things to do, right? That when what Toni Morrison always said, if you don't see it, if you see the need, I'm like, do that. If you're an academic, be like, okay, let's hold a funeral for the academia that we grew up with, right? That we fought hard to be in it, whatever it was, but like, let's let that go. What is the ritual that would allow you to truly let it go, right? And then That's the full moon ritual. And then the next new moon, this is just the way I know how to do it. Next new moon, then you plant your seeds. What would it look like to have an academic realm that was thrilling and challenging and student-centered and transformative ground, right? That's what we actually need. We need critical thinkers right now so much. So how do we seed that? And then once you seed that, then you're like, oh, I can actually be jailbreaking, right? I could be doing this work inside this, like everything we're doing right now is building the new inside the shell of the old, right? So just that building has a name on it of the old institution. But what are you starting inside it? I'm excited now. Y'all about to do these ritual funerals?
I was just about to say, I can now imagine them calling the cops on us when we go out there on the new moon.
Oh, yes. I think they're doing another encampment. You can just be like, we don't have masks on. I don't know.
I'm a little traumatized because that's all I could imagine.
Exactly, right exactly. You might have to do them a little off campus.
Yes.
But I tell you, there's a lot of places in North Carolina to do ritual.
Yes.
Yes. The Eno River will do almost everything you need.
Oh, yes. Out there that I've been to that was lovely.
Yes.
One last question. Tell Adrienne how lovely she is, and then we'll be done.
Everyone's satisfied, I think.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay. In which case, thank you very much.
Thank you. I love y'all. I really am so happy to be down south with y'all. Yeah, let's keep it going.
And everyone can find your way back into the store who didn't get their book signed. Feel free to shop. Feel free to get Facebook. We'll see you out there. Start cute.